watching Not Near Mint. My name's Rob Worst, and today is October the 30th, 2019. It is now 10:35 p.m. in the evening. We are starting 35 minutes late because hopefully, if you're watching this broadcast now live, that means that you just finished watching Comic Gories over at The Boy Who Had Seven. It was a great evening tonight, and apparently I won. I was not expecting that. But we also have some people on the show tonight, and I don't want to keep them waiting because I've already kept one of them waiting for now 35 minutes. So let's jump into the chat room tonight and say hello to everybody joining us. We have with us Miss Lady Fantastic. How are you doing tonight, Lady Fantastic?
I'm doing well, man. I'm licking my wounds from the battle.
You did pretty well,
361, man.
Well, I thought we were going to pull the same book because I knew you had it up for auction. I didn't know if you wound up getting rid of that
yet,
or
I
if you,
it's packed up.
It would have been great just for both of us to go, well, we both pulled the same book, so
it's hilarious. That would have been hilarious. I knew you were going to pull that one.
Yeah, I'm predictable.
You're the man.
I'm predictable. So let's have the next person join us. He has not been on YouTube before, and considering the subject that we are going to be talking about a little bit later in the broadcast, his name is Mr. We'll just call him Miracleman. The funny thing about YouTube is everybody has a nickname except for me because it's weird. And I don't know whether I'm referring to people as code names as their X-Men name or YouTube name. So let's all give it up for Kimoda. 1977, he goes by the name Miracleman on Twitter.
Hey there, Rob. How you doing tonight?
I can't complain. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm not too bad. Just wanted to say, if anybody came here to hear from me, please lower your expectations.
My name is Rob Worth. I think the expectations are about as low as they're going to go.
Fair enough.
But we just watched a very, very entertaining, very energetic, very passionate game of Comic Gories. Lady Fantastic was right there at the end. I thought she was going to win the whole thing. And then I see in the chat room, hey, Rob, you want to come in here? I'm like, oh, I'm working on this show. Okay.
This one is here. It's like flipped up. Sorry, I have this one sprig of hair. I'm like trying to get it. Sorry.
You got it.
Jump to you. Just blow up that picture here in the center.
Sorry.
Oh,
don't blow me up. Don't blow me up. I got the sprig of hair. Well, I'll show you guys something then.
Well, since today is New Comic Book Wednesday, I know that you went to the comic store a little bit after us, Lady Fantastic. I keep wanting to say Mr. Miracle. I don't know. It's like I have the book. The book is looking right at me. That's why I keep calling Miracle Man, Mr. Miracle. So since today's New Comic Wednesday, how about we go around the room, see what all we got, and I'll blow up your video chat to see what you got. I'll go last. So how about Lady Fantastic? Let's just ask the question, what comics did you get today?
I got 5 comics, and 4 of them were new comics. One of which was Silver Surfer Black #5. Had to get it. Love the series. Haven't had a chance to read it. I found Venom 19, but I found the Mary Jane variant. Look at it, man. It's pretty crazy. And, oh, man, I got the Dark Side. Deceased. I love it. It's the shit. It's the hog's balls. And I got this. You reminded me to get it. A Basket Full of Heads. Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. So I picked that up. And then I also picked up a Defenders #2, baby. It's not in the greatest shape, but Search for Silver Surfer. Oh, man.
So I know what I'm getting in the next auction that you have.
You're getting that cattail.
I'll take a cattail or a cat with 9 lives.
So yeah, that's all I got, man.
All right. So, Mr. Miracle, God, Miracle Man.
Hey, Rob.
Well,
First of all,
over to you.
I wanted to say fantastic Defenders. I love that series. I'm still putting it together myself. Not 100% done yet, but I think I'm down to about 17 issues. I just picked up the giant-sized Defenders at this small box buy I did on Monday. But for today, unfortunately, I did not get to pick up my new books today. So I'm going to show you a couple of books that I've been picking up, books that came out in the last month, and a couple of books that I really, really dig real quick. First, I just got to say, this here was a book that I absolutely didn't know anything at all about until right before it got on the shelves. I believe, I might be wrong, but I think it's actually the first Diamond distributed book from a Wave Blue World. It's Dead Legends. Think basically Mortal Kombat, but a whole lot less magic. Just a bunch of butt-kicking people in the whole book. Fantastic first issue. Love the cover. Interiors are a little different, but still really great. Absolutely love that book. I think it came out 2 weeks ago. Second, and this one here, this one's probably the oldest one actually out of the newer books I pulled here. Pandemica, Jonathan Mayberry, IDW. First issue came out end of last month. Really good book. It's kind of a setup issue, but it gives you a couple of teases. I know we're all probably a little apocalyptic, worn out, but this is it looks like it's moving into some type of after a horrible event type of situation. You see somebody here doesn't look very healthy. Looks like they've been that way a while. Fantastic book. One of the best ones I read in the last month. And IDW, I don't pick up a lot from them. No One's. This book's great. Jim Kruger, Welby on the art. Cave is the publisher. Cave Pictures Publishing. This book exists in the same universe as Kruger's Foot Soldiers book, which was a small press. I think it went through Dark Horse and then Image, and then it went to trades after that, or one shot like Prestige books after that. Really good book. I don't want to give too much away, but in the very first issue, this small group of heroes, they're like the world's greatest heroes, but they are just horrible, horrible human beings, selfish, self-centered, really just all about the money. And in the very first issue, they essentially disappear from the world. They're still there, but nobody remembers them. Nobody knows who they are, and nobody will remember them no matter what happens. So they could literally walk into a bank, rob it, and nobody knows what happens. And that all happens in the first issue. Next one here, from Ahoy Comics, Second Coming. Mark Russell did Flintstones, that Snagglepuss book a couple years back. Richard Pace on the art. Really, really good book. I think there was a little controversy about it before it came out. It was supposed to be one of the last books at Vertigo, and they kind of let Mark take it away and take it over to Ahoy over here to get it published, because they just couldn't do everything that they wanted to do as a Vertigo book. But he brought it to Ahoy, and it's been a fantastic series.
So you've actually been reading this series.
Oh, yeah.
So have you gotten a chance to read, what was the name of that one? Chosen, the story that was put out maybe about a decade or so ago. I thought it was very similar, at least from what was the descriptions. So tell us about the story a little bit.
Well, basically, this is Jesus's return to Earth. He comes back to Earth, and not to give too much away, but God doesn't want a repeat of his last visit. and takes him to live with the world's greatest superhero, which is a Superman analog. And he's trying to learn from the hero character, and Jesus is supposed to be learning from him, but in reality, obviously, the superhero is not doing that great. He needs some guidance of his own, and he starts to learn from Jesus. But it gives a great opportunity to kind of talk about all the good things that in the Christian faith, while at the same time maybe kind of poking a little bit of well-needed satire at the people who may not be living up to the teachings, despite the labels they may apply, if that makes sense. So it does poke a little bit at that, but it is absolutely not in any way disrespectful. If you are a very devout believer and had any concern in that regard, I don't see any reason at all. Sure, it has a little satire to it and a little bit of comedy, but it's not disrespectful. It's been a really good book. There is one piece that I haven't loved, and it's the change in art depending on whether they're showing the superhero or the holy part of the story. So it's sometimes a little jarring. It's supposed to make a segue, but it doesn't always flow really well. That might be my only critique.
So two good questions on this. Why do you think DC would pull it if it was given the respect that the material deserves? And two, what about the tone? Is the tone just inconsistent, or does it need to find its footing, or is it just a miniseries and they never really found its footing? What are your thoughts?
Well, from what I understand, I follow Mark Russell on Twitter, and he and Richard were very open about what happened at the time. I think editorial stepped in a little bit more than they were comfortable with, and I'm willing to bet there were some parts where, again, there was some satire directed, and they may have asked to have that toned down or something edited so it came out a little bit of a different way. And I think, in their discussions, according to Mark and what I read at the time, DC was fine when Mark expressed not being interested in making all those changes, not making all those adjustments and edits to his original story. And he gave them, or they gave him the opportunity to take the property back and move on to another publisher, because it was supposed to be a Vertigo title. So it was, as creator owned as DC gets.
It would have been the only Vertigo title left.
Well, that's true. They did kind of swamp out that imprint. But it could have been folded into, I don't even know. I don't think it could have been folded into anything. A Black Label, that one doesn't really fit. It's satire. It's really not. Black Label's kind of dark. I don't think it would have fit that. This isn't a dark story. It's very uplifting and positive, and listen, wherever you fall on any spectrum, the teachings of Christ. I'm not necessarily a devout believer or anything like that. I'm not a preacher, that's for sure. But when you look at this book, it really gives a positive message. It's not a negative message about religion or the faith.
So would it be comparable, I guess, would you say, to Kevin Smith's Dogma?
Not even to that extreme. You remember when that came out? I mean, that movie was, there were some mad people about that movie when that movie came out.
They didn't even see it yet.
I do not think the Pope took that one well. I think it was, I don't think the Pope took that one well.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure you're right.
That movie?
Carlin, George Carlin was the preacher or the Pope or whoever. Yeah. He was hilarious. Yes. I love George Carlin. I actually got to see him live at the Ryman Auditorium I was 17 years old during the 2002 You Are All Diseased tour.
Nice. I always wanted to see George Carlin live, but he passed.
I know. Bless. Yeah, he was awesome. Sorry, sorry.
No, it's fine. No, actually, well, I got a story, but I'll tell. It's not comic related, so I'll tell that story another time.
Oh,
but
real quick, there was something that I got that from last week. We had on Rena Brown. She was doing her book Isle of the Dark, and wouldn't you know it, I'm not going to show the address because I don't want to get doxxed or have some SWAT team show up at my door. Considering we're going to be talking about later. So I'll just open this while we are discussing things. And this is what Sharon, Life with Two YouTubers, sent on over. This is the promotional material for her book. And I just wanted to show that to everybody. Hold on. She gave me a nice little thank you so much for featuring me on your live stream. It was so much fun. I hope you like the shirt. From Rena. Thank you so much, Rena. So this is the shirt that she sent. This is the Isle of the Dark promotional material, because anybody that comes on the show, I want you to know what they're about, what they're doing, and she will be a published author. So thank you so much, Life with Two YouTubers, Sharon, Rena, who is Raw Random Wolf. Thank you so much. I would put this on, but I'm kind of wearing a suit, and it would just get really hot in here really quick.
Just rip it all off.
You would want to see that, wouldn't you? No one wants to see that. So, go ahead.
I don't even know. I can't remember my train of thought. It's fleeting.
For me at this point, I've been awake since 4 a.m. Tomorrow, my day is going to start about that too. So I don't see myself going to sleep tonight. So I'm going to jump on over to a different screen here for myself so y'all can see what I got. Now, you'll see on the table, these are some of the books that I won with tonight on Comic Gories.
You turd.
Sorry.
No, you're not.
No.
You're not sorry. You're not sorry.
So I'm just going to jump to my screen real quick. I'm going to go through these as fast as I can. First, I'm going to show a shop that I went to last Friday that I discovered here in Miami. The name of that shop is Frank's Comics. So let me just get you two out of the screen. I'll jump back in about 3 minutes if I can, even quicker. All right. And I lost my mouse again. So the name
Where did you lose it?
No, it's the connection just keeps dropping for some reason. Okay, so Frank's Comics is located at 2678 Southwest 87th Avenue in Miami, Florida. The person that runs the shop, his name is John Freshley, and these are some of the key pickups I got this week. So I'll show those quickly, and then I'll jump back to you guys, and then I'll show the new books from this week. So here we go. I've never had a copy of Batgirl #1, so I picked that up. This is the orphan version of Batgirl. Now, Lady Fantastic was looking for this book for a little while. We were texting last week. She ordered one online. I went to Frank's Comics, and I found it. Got a cool first appearance. I also picked up first He-Man in DC Comics, first appearance of Firestorm, the first appearance of Helena Bertinelli version of Huntress. She has appeared before the Huntress, but this is the first time it's Helena Bertinelli. Next, we have the first appearance of Machine Man. Now, inside the chat room right now, we have a person by the name of Albert Abro. I met him at Frank's Comics, so if you get a chance, check him out later. Sub up to his channel, and as I always tell everybody, sub up to one another in the chat room. Next up, I picked this up today. I went back because I missed some books that were at the shop today, so I picked up the first appearance of the first female Captain Marvel. Yes, there was a Captain Marvel before the Captain Marvel, the white blonde lady, and it was Monica Rambeau. Next up, first appearance of the Falcon in his new costume, the red and whites. Oh, what's this? It's the first appearance of Oh, wait, no, not the first appearance of anyone. It's the second appearance of Wendigo on the cover, along with the fourth appearance of Wendigo. And, oh yeah, some furry guy appears in this book somewhere. I think his name is Pulverine. I could be wrong. Wolverine? Is that it? Wolverine? Oh yeah, it's Wolverine's first appearance. Fight me. Wolverine's third appearance. Those I got at A&M Comics. This, some people might wonder, hey, what's this? This is the first Frank Miller artwork in comics. It is John Carter, Warlord of Mars, issue number 18. I've been having trouble finding this in a while. Found it today. Also found today the first appearance of Bloodstone, along with his origin, issue number 2. Following that, we have the origin. It's a low-grade copy of the origin of the Black Knight, since we are now having a movie coming out soon with the goddamn Black Knight. No one gave a crap about this character until you made him a character from Game of Thrones, which, sorry about that last season, y'all. This is the first appearance of a lot of those time and gemstones that you see used in the Infinity movies. So, yeah, this is where it all pretty much started here, at least the stones themselves. And Warlock 2. Hey, it's the first appearance of Captain Britain in American comic books. And there's also a cameo of this other dude that appears in the cover of the next issue, the first full appearance of Arcade. Arcade does appear as like a mail truck or a delivery driver. He only shows his face in one panel and he's silhouetted the rest. But first full appearance of Arcade and Murder World in issue 66 of Marvel Team Up. Next up, the first appearance of Moon Girl. Not Devil Dinosaur, that's a 70s book, but I've been looking for this one for a little while. Picked that up today. Moving on, Spider-Woman issue number 1. It was $3. Books that are coming out today are already $3.99, so $3. I could have done worse. I actually did. The first appearance of Mangog on the cover. He appears in the previous issue, but this was just such a nice cover that I picked it up last Friday. Moving on, the first appearance and cameo of the New Warriors in a newsprint edition. Been looking for that one for a while. There's only been 1,624 of them printed. It is the second print of Venom, First Host, the first cover appearance of Sleeper being used currently in the Venom series. And finally, of the pickups from Frank's Comics, What If issue number 1. What if Fantastic Four had Spider-Man join? So those were the pickups, but not necessarily the new books of the week. So these are the keys that I picked up this week, so now I can share with you all that. So did you get a chance to read Lady Fantastic, that issue of Batman Beyond 37?
I've been busy as hell. I'm working on a manuscript. I haven't had time to read. Or I haven't had the constitution, the personal constitution to read. Yeah, I've been tired lately. I want to show you something, though.
Yeah, let's see. I'm going to jump on over to you. Oh, I'm going to jump just to you so you can show.
We're twinsies. So, yeah, I just want to show. I also have that Frank Miller first cover with Marvel. And then I just have a couple of Invaders that I want to show. This one is a king-size annual, number 1. Oh, I just love this one. Knocking out Nazis. Just such a personal favorite of mine. And the Invaders, number 5. Look at that. And I know I've shown these, but still they make me really happy and excited on the inside. That's it.
And you know, Reggie collects. He's been looking for a lot of those Invader issues. So if you wind up having doubles, let him know. He might go, hey, I want to jump on that.
Oh, thanks, guys, for some nice books. Oh, wait, actually, there's a lag. Never mind.
No, I think they were talking about yours as well. It's all our books. That's why people are here. That's why there are 16 people in the live chat. And if you're watching this as a replay, I thank you for watching it. How about Miracleman? Do you have any more books that you picked up lately?
Well, yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, the entire Charlton run I got sitting back here. that just fell over are all in the last month. A couple of space adventures there from they're reprints, but I mean, just look at those Ditko covers, man. That's just gorgeous. Wait, you can't see them, can you?
No, we can see there's just a bit of a glare. It's not that bad. All you need to do is just flip the book a little, and it should be fine. And it's just a cover.
Okay, so I just picked all these up. A couple little cons. This here is probably the priciest one. This is the second issue of the first Ted Cord Blue Beetle series, and it's his origin issue. Fun fact, well, maybe not a fact, but fun urban legend. Supposedly, the same presses they printed these comics with, they also printed cereal boxes. And by the quality of the interiors, I don't know if that's fake or not. This is actually a pretty good one, but not the greatest quality books. A lot of print errors, stuff like that. But they're cool. The superhero stuff, there wasn't a lot of it. The action heroes, there were very few appearances of them throughout all of Charlton's history. Captain Atom probably had the most. The Question, I think there's like 10 appearances of them completely in all of the Charlton books. There's really not a lot. And then one other one here. Now, this one's probably a less expensive book, but if you can find it, if you watch the CW show at all of The Flash, that right there is a book I cannot recommend more trying to track down. It is a tie-in issue to the original 90s TV show. There's John Wesley Shipp in his costume back in, what was that, 91, 92, 91. And it's fantastic, really, really very dated story. But the fantastic part is in the back, there's an interview and stills from the Mark Hamill episode of the original Flash show, where you get to see Mark Hamill in what has got to be the worst supervillain costume ever invented for live action. It's tights.
I saw it way back in the day when I was a teenager. When, hey, look, it's Mark. Yeah, what the hell happened to him?
Yeah, we were all excited. Remember how excited we were? We were getting Luke Skywalker in something. Oh, and then we saw it and we were like, oh God, that's terrible.
And as it turned out, we've all seen the movie, the Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. It looked like Cockknocker.
Right. You know what? The Cockknocker costume was better than his trickster costume in that Flash show. Clearly we know what they spent all the money on in that show. This costume was I mean, just fantastic at the time, but and those special effects, I'm pretty sure they used the same one for the last half of the season. They just use it at a different angle.
It's the same running scene over and over again. We kind of have to make it look a little different. Well, we'll just flip the image and mirror it. Right.
And so it was, the show, it deserved to die. I was very sad at the time because you remember we didn't have anything else in 91, 92. There was no other shows. We were getting David Hasselhoff as
Nick Fury.
Yeah, what was that, 94, 93, I think that was. So we didn't have anything back then.
Oh, we got Nightman from Malibu.
I miss those Malibu properties, man. Marvel, give us those back. Give those back to us, Marvel.
Everything comes in cycles.
I know. Do you see they actually, sorry not to get tangential here. Is that a word? Not to go off on a tangent. But did you see they did a Rune HeroClix for Marvel?
Rune is in the Barry Windsor Smith property. Rune.
Yeah, and that's part of the Malibu.
Yeah, that's Malibu.
That's Malibu.
But Malibu and Marvel did join up at a certain point because I've got some Malibu Marvel comics.
Oh yeah, Marvel bought them.
Well, then there you go.
The story goes, Marvel bought Malibu, And the only reason they bought Malibu is because Malibu had the most advanced color separation process. They
Okay,
owned,
that's so cool, man. That's funny.
and that's the only reason they bought them. And again, urban legend. It's said that the reason we don't see any of those characters, they folded them in and then they never talked about them again, is because the creators, because of Malibu's deals, the creators would have gotten a bigger slice than they normally paid out to creators every time they used the characters. So they've been sitting on a shelf since, what was that, 97? 98 that happened. So that's why we haven't gotten any of those. Because they put the Rune figure out, in a conversation I was having with the owner of the LCS I frequent, he said, he and I were thinking that they might be bringing back some of those characters. Maybe Rune was to test, hey, is there any interest? Do people get excited when we put this, Malibu character out there? Half the Malibu properties were public domain characters anyway. The entire Protectors line was all, for the most part, were all Golden Age characters, just reworked for them. But they had a lot of original properties. They had, Rune was one of them. I think what was Prime, I think was their superhero, their Superman archetype. And they had a whole universe of characters that were a lot of fun, but they've just been, they just shelved them and they never went back to them again.
I think they just wanted the Malibu for their colorist properties and their printing
For
properties.
the technology.
Yeah, that was
We
it.
need the tech. We don't give a crap about your characters.
They didn't give
Let's
two
go on
ass. Nope.
Right.
All right.
Right.
What do you got?
Can we talk about the controversial stuff now?
Oh, can I tell the new books first, and then we'll go controversy?
Okay.
Because I have, again, just like last week, got home a little late and went, hey, I got to bag and board these things, take a picture for Instagram. Oh, wait, no, I did that last night to promote this show. I'm not taking any pictures. Oh, Comic Gories is on right now. I'm not getting anything done. Well, we can throw this into a briefcase. So this was a staple since I first started doing this channel. I call it What's in the Briefcase. And I'm pretty sure that Lady Fantastic knows what's in half of this because we were talking earlier. So I'm going to open this little bastard up and let's show this real quick and then let's get to some controversy. So, what, dear God, is in this briefcase today? It was not as heavy a week as it is usually because I wanted to get on over to Frank's Comics, see if I could pick up some other good books that I don't usually get a chance to, because some comic shops decide to put something out that say we reserve the right to change pricing at the counter, and as you know from me, I hate that to holy hell. So if I want back issues, I have to go to other shops. So I am going to direct this camera a little closer so you can see these books. And I'll flip the first one. So we are going to start with today. Dead Man Logan, issue number 11. This is when in the very last page, Danny Cage presents herself as the new Thor. And it continues on to the issue that came out this week, where it's the first full appearance as Danny as Thor. Moving on. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, issue number 13. Excalibur, issue number 1, the variant. Fantastic Four, grand design. Been looking forward to Tom Scioli, especially after Ed Piskor knocked it out of the park with X-Men grand design. Riri Williams Ironheart, number 11. Red Goblin, Red Death, issue number 1. Runaways, also featuring Doc Justice and the J Squad, or J Team, or Jesus. No, it doesn't start Jesus. Savage Avengers Annual number 1. Silver Surfer Black. I guess he's now completely the fallen one by the end of this issue. I can't wait to read it. Venom number 19, the first appearance of... No, I guess you thought I was going to be honest there. No, I'm totally lying. There is no first full appearance of Dylan as some Venom symbiote thingy, but he does look a little bit more venomish. Didn't read it. I just flipped through it just to see if it finally happened. Didn't. Chrononauts number 1. This continues on from Mark Millar's previous story of Chrononauts. Fight Club 3, issue number 10. Not sure if this is the last issue, because once it's on the last issue, I can finally binge it. Maul, issue number 3 from Vault Comics. Kick-Ass number 18, Steve Niles and Marcello Frusin. Had to go to another comic shop because I was skipped this week, but it is a $7.99 cover price. Do take note of that when you go to the comic shop. There's 2 covers. This is cover B. Basket Full of Heads, number 1, cover A. I think that Lady Fantastic got the other cover, but I'm looking forward to reading this. It is Stephen King's Son, written by Joe Hill. Batman Annual issue number 4. I guess we find out what happens to Alfred dying. I do not think he's dead. Deceased number 6. Deceased number 6. And I got another one of the same cover, Deceased number 6. I'm giving that away to my friend Rufo because I have the whole series to give him for Christmas. Dark Multiverse, Death of Superman issue number 1. Wonder Woman Annual number 3. And now the oversized books. Variant copy of Herline issue number 2. As well as Joker, Killer Smile, variant cover by Carrie Andrews. So now, what you've all been waiting for. I'm going to join everybody back in the chat room. So now, welcome back here to what I would like to call We Need to Talk About Ethan Van Sciver with Lady Fantastic and special guest, Mr. Miracle. Now, Mr. Miracle has some personal experiences with what has been going on in a certain type of community. We're going to try and keep the name of that community out of the chat because it's my channel and I just don't want to talk about that name. So what are your personal experiences, Miracle Man?
Well, I can tell you what I've seen. And I think, this group, everybody knows what we're talking about. This group is kind of eating itself at the moment. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. But here's what I've observed over the course of time. There's one main individual at this point that revels in the toxicity. And that's the individual that is the topic of our conversation, Mr. Van Sciver. So about a 2-ish year and a half or so ago, maybe, I got involved because I followed a lot of comic creators. I came to Twitter specifically because I wanted to interact with the comic book community. And, to also maybe poke a little bit at some political figures, because let's be honest, everybody likes a good troll once in a while.
Sometimes we're in for the lulls.
Yeah, well, particularly people of power. I think it's all of our civic duty as Americans to occasionally troll our elected officials, keep them on their toes a little bit. But be that as it may, I came because I generally wanted a comic community. I was excited about the prospect of being able to interact with creators, artists, writers, people who were involved. I've loved comics my entire life. I've been collecting comics since before I could read. So to have this opportunity to have the level of access that we have on Twitter, that's what I was really excited about. So what I observed happening over time was I saw a narrative that was being built. And the narrative was there's this nefarious group of, and I'm going to say probably one of my top 5 just dumbest terms I've ever heard in my life, SJWs, who were infesting comics and trying to inject their politics into comics. And, people didn't want politics in comics. They wanted apolitical comics. And, they thought there was forced diversity, and they were forced. I don't even know what that means. That's the dumbest. There was this forced diversity because they were changing the ethnicity of characters. And through all of this, as it snowballed and grew, and you saw personalities hopping onto the bandwagon with this, you saw a core group of creators that were kind of co-opting what was, once a disaffected fan group, and kind of providing a center of a rallying point for that. And over the course of the last year and a half, you've seen a bunch of people join into that. A lot of former pros, or people who, were always are just kind of right on the edge of becoming a pro. And they formed a group, and they appealed to these customers to come to them. And hey, we're gonna, all these things you have complaints about, we're gonna not do those things. We're gonna answer all those complaints. We're gonna be apolitical comics. We're not gonna do digital. We're gonna do crowdfunding and give you what you want. And here we are now, a year since the world's biggest IGG of all time was successfully funded, and we have a group of fans from that original funding who still haven't been provided their book.
And how much money are we talking here?
I don't recall the exact figures. I feel like I've seen different numbers because some of them had everything rolled together, some of them didn't. I know it was a 6-figure IGG, and I don't know if this is a combined number or if this was just that number, but somebody at one point in time, I believe, seeing something around 750.
Yeah, so I looked. I think it was a Van Sciver. Sorry, I said the name, but
no, you can say the name.
That he had been in, and it was like $500,000 that it was a project that he had tried. So that's like it sounds like similar ballpark.
And this sounds like back in the 90s where you'd have a new creator on a new independent book. He would put out, or she would put out 2 issues, 3 issues. They get optioned. They get all this money, and then you'd never see another issue ever again, much less hear from that creator again. Right. I mean, we can rattle off a list of names, I'm sure, between the 3 of us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I mean, I apologize. I kind of rambled here. People appealed to that disaffected group, and said that, and made a lot of promises. And hey, when somebody's going it on their own, you got to give them some credit. You got to give them a little leeway, in my personal opinion. I'm not somebody does a campaign and hey, they blow over it. Hey, things happen. I backed a campaign one time, and the guy mailed the stuff out, and then everything got returned because he couldn't use the mail method he was using, and it had to go back. I mean, things happen, So I'm not saying anything negative there, but there's fans. There's people who kicked into this, who were original backers. You go check the IGG today. They're all, there's lots of people posting how upset they are. And I feel for those fans. They bought into this. And I think personally we're kind of taken for a little bit of a ride, whether intentionally or not. We're taken for a little bit of a ride. Now that explanation there is the most positive way I can say of my experience with that group. My most negative experiences with that group.
Yeah, I'm going to want to hear both you and Lady Fantastic from this one. No, sorry. I want to hear both of you on this.
Okay.
Because this is important.
So here's the negative stuff I've seen. And lady, would you like to go first on this? I mean, as a woman, I'm sure you've experienced probably some even more than I have.
I don't think that I've necessarily experienced it directly. I've observed phenomenons in our culture where there has been a lot of backlash regarding the diversification of comics or social diversification. And so I just want to posit this in a certain framework. Okay. What the Marvel Now thing was to try to switch the characters into like female leads or something. I think that's what the Marvel Now movement was. So, all right, that's one way of doing it. Okay, I don't know if it's the best way, but it is a way where they show, okay, not every superhero is a white blonde dude. Do you know what I mean? At the same time, so people catch a lot of flack about that. People catch flack about progressive ideas. Now, in the same sense, think about Kirby and Stan Lee and what they wrote about. They wrote X-Men. What was X-Men about? It was about segregation and civil rights. And did it do well? Hell no. It did bad as shit.
It was getting canceled. It was on reprints.
Exactly. But look at it now and look how people see it as very forward thinking. So yes, I think there will always be haters at things that change or that they perceive are outside of what they're interested in. That doesn't mean that content is meritless, while at the same time, shit content comes out regardless of the agenda. So, and good content comes out regardless of the agenda. So I don't know. I just want to try to be fair, but yeah.
No matter what, creators for every era are going to try and capitalize off of whatever is popular at the moment. Like earlier this evening when we were playing that comic Gories, I showed that Ghost Rider. The only reason why Ghost Rider became so popular back in the day is because you had Evil Knievel. Iron Fist. Iron Fist got so popular because back in the day, there's not Jackie Chan, that's more modern. There was Bruce Lee. So no matter what, they were always trying to capitalize off of anything just to make money, because when you get to issue 300, 400, 500 of Detective Comics, you kind of have to keep it fresh. And how else are you going to keep it fresh unless you're pulling some ideas out of what is happening currently? Currently. At least that's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Well, look at Jack Kirby when he got to DC. When he got to DC, he went into DC's offices, and this was an absolute coup. You got one of the architects of the Marvel universe. They're coming over. DC was like, we will let you do whatever you want, Jack. You point at comic, you write comic, you draw comic, you get whatever you want. And Jack said, what book has the lowest sales in your lineup right now?
Jimmy Olsen.
Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. And he said, give me that book. And in the first, 10 issues, he introduces, that's a lie. The first issue, he introduces the Harrys, which were a bunch of hippies living in a commune, long hair, zipping around. He goes on to create the New Gods with the Forever People, which are clearly representations of how he viewed young people in that era. Jack Kirby, I think is unquestionably one of the greatest creators in the history of the medium.
Certainly one of the most prolific.
Certainly, whether you love his work, I will say, as I'm a big Kirby fan, when people say, a lot of it looks alike, I have to agree with them. I do understand what they're saying with that. No pushback there. He definitely had a design aesthetic. But, to your point, that's what Jack was doing. He came to DC. He wanted to do something new and different. What did Jack Kirby know about hippie culture in 1971? You know,
probably either very little, unless he was living with hippies, or whatever he watched on TV.
From what I hear, he was not living with hippies. You know, this was a greatest generation kind of guy. He was not living with hippies, from what I heard. But you know, that's exactly it. And when I hear, you know, I see people. I actually saw in the chat someone said, you know, there is forced diversity and sex swapping, and you know what? You're right. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but for those of us who've been comic collectors or comic readers or fans for a long time, that is absolutely in no way, shape, or form any different than what comics have been doing since the Silver Age. Hal Jordan wasn't the first Green Lantern. He was still a white guy, sure, but the first one was Alan Scott, and then the next one was Guy Gardner, and then the next one was John Stewart. You know, Flash, Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, Wally West, and a little bit for Bart Allen.
No matter what, you will always have a new generation of readers and another new generation and another. When I came into Flash, it was Wally West. So to me, Flash was always Wally West. And when they decided to take it out and here's Barry again, anyone that just picks up a comic for the first time, Barry Allen is the first Flash they ever read. So wherever you jump on, that is the character to you at that time. Right,
absolutely correct. You know, and you know, when it comes to the race changing and the sex swapping, Crisis on Infinite Earths to me is the greatest mini series, maxi series of all time. It's what made me from a comic fan to a comic collector. I love it. I have the Alex Roth lithograph from the Warner Brothers store hanging in my dining room.
You mean this?
Yes, indeed, my friend. I have that. I have it. Do you have the Perez Ross autographed version there?
Well, I traveled the country just so I could get it signed. I got to Wizard World with Alex Ross, and I caught a friend of mine, an old one, Robert Zabarski. He was working the convention. Went, Robert? Hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? I need to get in line, but they cut off the line. I'm working here. You want to get in line?
Nice.
Yeah. And that's how I got the signature for Ross. For George Perez, I went to MegaCon. I was about to get into line, and right as I get into line, he left for the day. I'm not coming back tomorrow. Well, he might be walking around. How am I supposed to tell who George Perez is? Really? Really, Rob? It's the easiest thing. Out of all these people wearing costumes, he's going to be the one person wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Right.
Oh, really? Yes, go find him. And I did. I went right up to him and I unrolled it and said, it would be an honor for me if you would sign this. Right. He told me stories. People were gathering around us. And that's what it is. Comics to me has always been a community, a way that some people that if we can't relate to others, at least we can relate through Batman or Spider-Man or Wonder Woman or Venom or whoever, whatever.
Yeah, I think when you get to the point that you want to exclude people or say this isn't the way this should be, then you've missed the point of being in the comic world. Because it's supposed to be a glue that binds us rather than something that should divide us. I mean, God, everything else in life does that enough. These should be stories about the human struggle, if they're good stories. And we should all, to a certain extent, be able to identify with them regardless of the color of our skin or our gender. You know, it's usually there's stories of overcoming strife, but perhaps on a superhero level. And I think if you're delivering those messages elegantly and in a way that people can relate to, then you're doing it right.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Very much.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, you know, there's times that it's happened, and you know, you see the change in the character, and it stood out as my point with Crisis on Infinite Earths. What was it, issue 11 or 12, where they introduce new Hour Man, new Dr. Midnight, and the new Wildcat. And Midnight and Wildcat were gender swapped and replaced from white men to women of color. And I don't think it was done because they were trying to force diversity. I mean, it was 1986, so nobody was talking about forced diversity in 1986. What it was an opportunity to take characters that have been around since the 40s and give them, the creators, an opportunity to tell the story from a different point of view, and not necessarily give up the power set or give up the character. You know, did anybody care about Dr. Charles McNider when he was retired and replaced by Dr. Beth Chappell for the Dr. Midnight swap? How many people on this chat right now even know who I was talking about? You know, and these are comic folks, and I'm sure there's a bunch, but I guarantee there's people who don't.
Very small subsection.
Right. You know, it was just an opportunity to tell it from a different point of view, give them a chance to tell new and unique stories, but still give a familiar setting to people to make it approachable. And I think there's people who do that the right way, and there's certainly people who do that the wrong way. But the problem is when you use a term like forced diversity or you know, whatever to describe that, it's too easy to take every opportunity to see that and say, oh, it's all forced diversity. And it's too easy for the fringe elements, which are the loudest, the ones you see most often, and the ones that you always remember, to co-opt that because they don't have less than honorable intentions or less than a true intention behind what those people are saying for forced diversity. And it's just like, you know, if has anybody ever seen the interview? There was an interview with another member, high-profile member of that organization, who's no longer on Twitter. Their next comic is coming out. They did an interview, and the interviewer asked him directly, "Does it bother you that white supremacists would probably like a lot of the things you're saying?" And his response was, No, that doesn't bother me. That's a problem.
I get the whole, you don't want to knock down any part of a base of readers, so you try and say as little negative things as you can about something, so that if you might get that one really nasty ass hat, it's like, okay, I want him reading because I want that dollar, because my company's number one goal is to make money. Me as a creator, my number one goal is to stay employed.
Well, sure.
Now I look at somebody like, I'm going to say an example here because this is when I received my first online harassment. Back when I first had about maybe 100 people following me on Twitter, John Malin went and said some pretty extreme things on Twitter. And I just wrote a very simple line saying, you're going to look back on this one day and go, this was the tweet that got you fired from Marvel Comics. Was it worth it? And it got retweeted, it got liked, and that's when I started receiving death threats. And what we enjoy on a regular basis are goddamn funny books. They're floppies. Sure, they might be $1, they might be $100. No matter what, they are fictional characters. And no matter how much you might hate what a creator's doing right this moment, one day, today, will be 20 years ago, and there will have been several writers and artists and creators that will work on something that will walk back anything that you didn't like. So nothing really matters, because it doesn't matter what I like. It doesn't matter what Lady Fantastic likes. It doesn't matter what Mr. Miracle or you at home, it doesn't matter what you like. It matters what everybody likes. because the most amount of people that are reading something will keep a title afloat. And if it starts lagging, like Spider-Girl back in the 90s, early 2000s, it got resurrected and resurrected and resurrected until not as many people are reading it anymore, and it died a silent death. And it will come back if people want it, because nothing ever dies, apparently, except the Malibu universe.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And somebody, I'm sorry, I saw the chat here. Something else popped up where somebody had mentioned, that the Jeffrey Show had edited that person that I was referencing. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But to counter that, I would say I've heard the dark roast, and if you're unfamiliar with the dark roast, trust me when I say anything that's horrible that you could say about another human being was said on this dark roast, which was this same person's attempt to, probably drum up a little money on their patron, or however you pronounce that, patron. I never figured that out. And it's probably an attempt to drum up some money, and they sold it to their donors, and of course somebody leaked it. But basically, it's a half an hour, 40 minutes of that same individual on that interview, calling everybody pedophile or worse in the industry.
And in the end, it's really about how you look as an illusion. It's kind of like in my job as a court reporter, what I notice a lot of the time is the law in legal terms, in definitions of being in front of a judge, it is mostly about presentation, especially for a jury, because a jury doesn't know law. The public doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes for a creator of a book. They know what is presented to them when it comes to on internet, on the pages. So behind the scenes, they don't know, hey, I just told all my followers to go to this person's page and just ream them a new arsehole.
Right.
That's not good. The second that you say, I don't like you, I'm going to do something about it. Or if I can't have you, nobody can. Or I'll show them. Guys, you've read comic books enough. If you sound like this, you're the villain.
Right.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of things that I'd like to say is that nothing in life is black and white. Everything is grayscale, and so there are going to be individuals with a lot of talent that you really appreciate, but you might not necessarily like them as an individual. And in some cases, it's easier to separate the two, and in other cases, it's more difficult.
You touched upon exactly what I wanted to bring up here. The fact, can you separate the person from their art?
And I think it depends. For me, I say yes, but it is contingent upon it's a case-by-case situation, because it's much harder for me to separate Bill Cosby from what he did than, say, I don't know, Jeremy Renner or whatever his name is, from just kind of being a dick.
Oh, you got it.
You know what I mean?
Drunk and fire and gun. That's probably not good for the fact that I got a Hawkeye. It's like, hey, thanks. The second I got this is the day that news story dropped. Damn it, Jeremy.
And then at the same time, you have to try to think about what makes an individual tick that would cause them to have such extreme ideas, or to cause them to want to go and lambast an individual to the extent that it affects their daily lives. And maybe I don't think that people appreciate the intensity or the seriousness of that, but that's violence. That's violence. And so it's like, good God, your opinions are great and you should have them. What you can't do is start to offend the sensibilities and the freedoms of others. Like, that's fucked up, dude.
Yeah, we want to have more people joining us, not just in the chat room, not just on YouTube, but just to read comics in general, just to read. I mean, how many people do you see reading anymore aside from maybe not even a newspaper, a news article on their phone? That's about the extent of their reading. When I see a young kid with a comic book in their hand, I know that there's a very good likelihood by the time they reach in or around our age, they might still continue to do so. I want them to be the ones advocating, hey, this is a great thing. When I'm alone, when I'm depressed, I can pick up a comic book, dive right in there, and be in the world of Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner. It doesn't matter which Green Lantern, because we're all part of one core.
Yeah. J Hood Creative, I am so with you with the Bill Cosby. Like, I loved his stuff. And then it's like, dude, it's like more and more of the shit came. And it's like, I cannot resolve this. Whoa. Right. So for me, there is kind of a level. It's a spectrum.
Yeah, knowing what we knew about Kevin Spacey, I can still go back and watch the movie Seven and love the hell out of that movie. What's in the box?
Yeah, there's certain, but it's like, dude, oh my God. Yeah, that was another one. I don't know. But what else was I going to try and say? It's hard to understand why people do the things that they do, but it's easy to see how when something changes, you have the majority of the audience that they generally cater to kind of backlash and rebel and say, what the hell? And that always happens. But to what extent and for how long necessarily dictates the success of a title. But I would also say time does as well. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, I think I don't know how far I've gotten us off topic, but
we're just loosely on this topic. We haven't talked about Ethan Van Sciver in a little while.
Not very much.
Large, broad sense of this community where some people want to do harm because it elevates them, while others feel as though, hey, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to be reading comics if I have to be talking to other people that will try and nag me down to the point that I just don't want to pick up a comic because
it's too much.
I'm reading it, and they'll go, you know what? You're a crappy person because you're reading this person's book. I don't want to be told that.
Where does the impetus for that behavior come from? Because it's like people don't just feel like that because they feel like that. Where did what happened to whoever to make them feel like, because I don't like something, I'm going to attack the individual personally? Like, I just don't understand that. And yes, like doing shit on the internet, like doxing somebody or, putting out, that is harm, like it's dangerous. Right. But I don't know, man.
Well, particularly in nerd fandom, I think really anything that gets to be called a fandom, you have uber fans. I mean, you see
there's the intensity.
Right. Yes. There's people that this is really important. Passion. Something that people know.
You get fiery about it.
Right. Exactly. And comics, we're older comic collectors. You remember what comic collecting was like back in the 80s and 90s. And you really didn't tell people you collected comics in the 80s. If you were a comic fan, you just went and bought comics. You didn't really talk about it. There wasn't this community of people that you could share it with. I think that, anywhere near like what it is today, now that it's accepted in the mainstream, you can walk into just about anywhere and you'll see something superhero or comic related. I mean, it's almost impossible to ignore the imprint that comics have now had on our entire society at large.
It's an American staple.
Right.
And now it's Disney, not just a subsection. It is Kevin Feige pretty much in charge of all of Disney. Hence, why Game of Thrones creators are no longer working on a Star Wars trilogy, because now comic books is not just taken over, everything we love is taken over our basic childhood. Aside from, if they want to co-opt, your mom leaving you, they have our childhood.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I get, with comics, there was a level of outsiderness. We were the fringes for how long? And
so long that I'll say this about
until about the late 80s, mid 80s.
When Batman Michael Keaton came out, then it started becoming a little bit more mainstream. Still another decade until Blade came out. And even then, Blade's not really a comic book movie. They didn't put Marvel in front of it. Okay, fine. Spider-Man, 2001.
Right.
A little bit longer. X-Men. Okay, finally, when you have a real cinematic universe, that's when people start coming up to you going, hey, Miracleman, what do you know about the X-Men?
Oh, yeah.
Lady Fantastic, I heard you like comics. So there's this movie coming out called Mystery Men with Ben Stiller.
What do
you know about that?
That's one of the greatest films of all time.
That was a really fun movie, actually.
You're right, though. That's exactly it. In the early 2000s, the film started taking off. People started getting into it. It started becoming more mainstream. And then, you had these questions coming from the people that probably 20 years ago would have made fun of a comic reader, or certainly not have come up to one trying to pick their brain and find out about this cool movie they heard about that's got, whatever superhero or comic related property in it. So I think I started noticing the first rumblings of what would become Comicsgate. I want to say, when was Infinite Crisis? 2007.
Infinite Crisis.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I said the name, didn't I? My apologies.
I have Identity Crisis up.
Well, Jaime Reyes. I started hearing the Blue Beetle. I think that was Infinite Crisis 5. That I think it was 07, somewhere right around there. Either way. But that's when I started first hearing people saying forced diversity and complaining about, they're changing these characters, they're making them, they changed the Blue Beetle to being Latino. Well, he was, he's the third Blue Beetle, right? Like the last one was a gymnast scientist. The one before that was a police officer who, put on chainmail and beat up street thugs in the alleys. It's not.
Yeah, it's like, look, they're all humans. Who gives a damn? Look at Grendel. They switched Grendel out. Like, what's the big deal?
Right.
It's just about creativity and trying to be. You have to take things places. You have to take risks, and sometimes it really pisses people off. But it is what it is, man. And
and the thing is, I hear these things from people, and they say, "Well, I won't buy Marvel because it's woke garbage." I don't really hear that so much about DC, so we'll concentrate on Marvel here. I'm not buying Marvel because it's woke garbage, and it's the SJWs have infested it. And I ask you, how many titles do you think Marvel publishes per month?
Oh God, if I had to take a wild guess, 300.
Yeah, that's right about right, man. So let's say
with one shots and all, not core titles, just everything that's put out in a month.
Right, exactly right. So 300 books.
That.
How many of those do you think are too SJWE? Out of all those titles, I mean, let's say half of them are woke garbage. That leaves you 150 books you can buy from Marvel a month that are something that you'll probably like if A, you like comics, or B, you happen to like Marvel characters, or Star Wars for that matter, or whatever other properties they're publishing. I'm not saying you have to like every book. I've never liked every book. I have over 10,000 DC comics in my collection. Just DC. I don't like every DC book.
Yeah, and you know what? In the 70s and 80s, people that didn't like books didn't band together and like shit on the people that created it, you know? But I think
this pick of Brian Michael Bendis Superman that I just find challenging to read, because as you were talking earlier about Kirby coming over to say, hey, give me the book that's selling the least, they just put him on Superman and it just became really difficult to read. It's not because of SJW politics or whatever you want to call it. It's just because it is a slog to read through.
Right.
That's not a knock on a character in it. It's just the writing.
Hey, give me just a second. I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
Go ahead.
Just got to pop out for 2 seconds.
You know, that's a valid point. You know, take that, extrapolate that further back. Let's go back to the Bronze Age of comics. Invaders, a comic where literally every issue was fighting Nazis, or Secret Society of Supervillains. No lies. Supervillain Team Up, where, you know, their main villain for most of it, outside of the supervillains, was the hate monger, who was literally Adolf Hitler in a purple Grand Ku Klux Klan wizard costume. That seems real political, man. I mean, it might not seem political in 2019, but it was political in 1973, 74.
I've always felt that if they have to bring in Nazis into a comic book, it's like on The Simpsons when they decide to introduce Poochie, the new dog, because we ran out of ideas.
Right.
I see a Nazi in a comic book, I go, well, that writer's out of ideas.
Right. It's a lazy trope at this point. Comic book characters have been fighting Nazis since comic book characters were invented.
And just like
they're a good villain.
Universe, they pointed out pretty well. If you start getting lazy, just create the mega version of yourself. Well,
right.
we don't know what to do with Spider-Man anymore, so how about Venom? Well, we have Venom. Well, we don't know what to do with Venom. We have, Eric Larson's working on Venom, and you just made him with bigger teeth. What else can we do to him? I don't know. Maybe make him bloody and call him Carnage. What else can we do with him? I don't know. How about a hybrid like Sleeper?
Yeah.
Let's just create knockoff after knockoff after knockoff, because if you dilute the product, you're killing what made it so great to begin with. And that's the argument I see more that they cannot articulate very well. At least those people in I'll call it the Gator community. In that community, they seem to have a hard time vocalizing that. It's a dilution of property. If they could say it that way, it would make more sense. But since they bring a race into it, it just makes them look like assholes. And try not to look like an asshole, because it makes it easier to get a job later on.
The internet is forever, boys and girls.
Make your life easier to get through, not harder.
Right.
Like, if you can't change somebody's mind, all you're going to do is frustrate yourself. You're going to walk away still being frustrated, having changed nobody's mind. Instead, like I was talking to Miracleman earlier, it's like that movie, The Road Warrior, Mad Max. Unfortunately, it does have Mel Gibson in it, but we won't talk about that because there's a great scene in it. Just walk away. You don't need to die today, just walk away.
There's like 7 billion plus people on the face of the earth, and of those that read comics, they're not all going to agree. But the great thing is that there is a body diverse enough to satisfy almost anyone, and I think that's what we should value and appreciate. And I think there's too much good stuff in comics for us to like shit on anybody else. I mean, I could make fun, like, okay, there are some Atlas comics that were kind of goofy in the drawings, but I'm not going to sit there if somebody doesn't like, I don't know, man. It's like, why invest so much negativity? I don't understand what is behind that behavior, what causes one to lash out negatively towards someone else just because what they think is different. I don't know. I don't get it.
I mean, he's had diversity going way far back. A good example, and I'm using my phone here to bring this up. Always have to shout out Key Collector Comics app. There was a book back in June of 1947 that went by the name of All Negro Comics. It was the first comic book produced in full by Black creators, including writers, artists, and a publisher. Problem was there was in the very back a advertisement for the second issue that never saw print, because once it reached comic shops, you had the early versions of Fred Wertham, the guy that wrote Seduction of the Innocent, destroyed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of comics. So you know what? If people see this all Negro comics, then you'll have people that want to see more people that are Black creators working on comic books. This is an argument that's gone back damn near 3/4 of a century here.
Right.
Haven't we come a little bit further now? We had Matt Baker, one of the great artists of the time, where I didn't even know who he was until about 2 years ago because of comic book YouTubers. It's a community. Embrace it.
It's cool to learn about new stuff. Like, just because I might not necessarily like a title doesn't mean that I think poorly of the person that does. I don't know. It's not a reflection of your character. It's just a fucking comic book. Don't make someone's life miserable over something that's supposed to make you happy. You know, like, it shouldn't get this deep. But has like things like YouTube enabled that to a certain extent? The intensity to which people can express their discontent? I don't know.
I actually can't remember if it was Sharon, Life with Two YouTubers, or another attorney that's in the chat room right now. I don't know if he's still in here or not. I think he might have left. But he showed me a picture of, hey, I know you want this. And it was a picture of My Little Pony, issue number 1. And sent as a joke, and it's like, actually, yeah, I do want it. It's just because I am a key collector. It's just something I like to do, because you never know when I might need that money again. If I go homeless again, I need to sell books. So yeah, I want it, because it doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what I like. It matters what everyone else likes. If I need to make a little money later on, that's an economic decision. But it's more that it's not made for me. If I don't like something, it might be because it's poorly written or poorly drawn. But then there's stuff like My Little Pony. It's not meant for a 40-year-old man like myself. It's meant for a child. Rick and Morty, not everyone's going to like it. It might be for that subsection of people that like to go stand on McDonald's, their countertops, and go, I want my Szechuan sauce. Yeah. Those people are a problem.
Unruly Simeon says something. He says 10,000 years from now, presumably we'll all be the same color, and on religion and everything will be resolved itself, but we'll still hate each other, because we will. Here's the thing, and I'd like to talk about this scientifically. We are relegated to evolutionary remnants of very primitive brains. So what our brainstem is basically a reptilian brain. And yes, as we get, as time passes, we slowly are getting larger brains. But look, mammals, primates specifically, of which we are, they're really violent mammals. I mean, and they're cruel, and they fight to the death, and it's just fucked up. And we're not any different than that, but we can recognize that we do it. And so hopefully this can be a lesson. Like, we don't have to continue to do things like chimps or monkeys, because we have the ability to voice the incongruence of the behavior. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
We have the ability to recognize what we're doing.
Precisely. And we have a sense of morality, and that the sense of morality comes from a higher evolutionary concept of being able to preserve a society, be part of, like, if everyone else does well, so if I treat everyone else well, then I will be treated well. And so it's yes,
things you want to see.
right. Chickens are vicious. No, that old comic smell. I would not disagree. Chickens are vicious, but they are not mammals.
Are they? I don't know. I've never.
Certain fighting roosters are.
Yeah, they're not necessarily the friendliest animal on earth.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You can have a very friendly chicken. I've seen some videos of the cutest little girl you've ever seen in pigtails coming home from school, and her chicken ran down the driveway and met her at the end of the driveway at the school bus. And that chicken was excited to see that little girl.
Excited.
Yeah, but you caught it. But you made an excellent point before about not everything's made for everybody. I'm just gonna admit to two things that typically amount to comic book suicide. One, I think Deadpool and Harley are the dumbest characters I've ever seen in my life.
I hate Harley Quinn.
I hate those characters. They're lazy.
Thank you.
They're lazy. And I'm not saying there have not been talented creators who have utilized that characters and told effective stories that were enjoyable, whether they were lazy stories or not, stories that people would be able to connect to and enjoy and spoke to them. Harley and Deadpool did two things that were great for comics. They brought people who were not normally into comics into the comic shops, into the movie theaters, buying merch with superheroes on it. And every superhero that succeeds gives an opportunity for another superhero or another comic that we like to succeed. So I never, ever say a word, this is very unusual, about Deadpool or Harley to anybody. I don't smack talk their fans. I don't make fun of them. When they come in and they're like, oh, what's a comic? I don't say a word about it. I do not do that because...
live and let live.
Well, it's an opportunity. Like I said, every time anything in comics succeeds, all of comics succeeds. And we've had so much success for so long that people who've been friends for 20 years now, that's not a short period of time, but people who've been fans for 20 years have only experienced comics on an ever-increasing arc. And they didn't experience the Hoff as Nick Fury. They didn't get the Justice League pilot with a fat Martian Manhunter. Okay? They didn't have to see a Captain America movie where the shield is flapping back and forth on the motorcycle because it's made out of plastic. Yeah. And I'm not bashing those new fans. I'm glad they're with us, but they don't know that that's what we used to get. And now every single comic book success has built the platform for the next level of comic book success, whether it's Spider-Man and X-Men and Blade in the early 2000s, whether it's the Marvel universe when it launched, whether it's DC, whether you like it or not, and I'm not even going to fight those people, movie universe, or any of those things. If you enjoyed them, the Walking Dead TV show, man, what did the Walking Dead TV show do for comics and comic properties?
If it wasn't for the Walking Dead graphic novels, we would not have the comic industry as we have it today.
Nowhere near.
It helped prop up the industry. It helped prop up comic shops that were largely dying in that early part of 2000, 2010. And people were coming into comic shops to get Walking Dead. And now that it's no longer there, it left a vacuum.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing that I really do like. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of Harley, despite the fact that I have it. I got this on day one when it came out.
Oh, there you go.
It took 27 years before I found a Harley that I liked. And this is the book. But the thing that really gets me is that it doesn't matter what the book is. It might be Kazar, a character not many people give a crap about, but some kid might pick up that book, start tracing it, drawing from it. They'll pick up another book that you and me, Lady Fantastic, wouldn't give a crap about. They're drawing from that, or they're learning from the stories. And then one day, out of the blue, they've been working in independent books for a little while. They get their shot at Marvel, and now all of a sudden, that person's name is Donny Cates.
Right.
Because that's how it works. That somebody just decides to pick up a comic one day, they read it, they get into it. It might not be for me, might not be for you, but it was for them. And
it changed their lives.
Changed their lives.
And it changed the comic book world.
Yes.
Right. And that's why it doesn't, to me, I'm just a fan of the medium. I love the history. I go back into the pulp era. And I've studied a lot in the pulp era of characters and how they rose into the superheroes, and I've gotten into some great tangents there. But all the way up until now, every step of the way, back in the 50s when Dell was the biggest comic book company in the world, and in the 70s when DC was bankrupting Fawcett, and Kirby was running away because he got a bum contract at Marvel. Into the 80s when we started going grim and gritty, and the 90s when we went extreme, and in the 2000s when we went, we better not do the 90s again. I followed along on this history, and
it's like 2000 was the time when they went, hey, I know that it was all about the art in the 90s. That crashed our entire field. How about we make some quality stuff?
Right.
And just need to get better. But at the same time, as some things got better, they went, hey, you're a great creator. Instead of you working on one book, I want you working on 10.
Right.
And that great creator went, it's too much. I like the money, but it's too much. And now the quality isn't as good anymore. So now it's come to the point of, it's just like back in 2008 when the economy cratered and people had to go from taking one person's job to, well, they fired this person, that person, and that person. Well, I'm now doing the job of 5 people. And that's become the economy. That's become the creator economy for people that are freelancers. Because no matter who it is, even Donny Cates, they're all freelancers. No matter what you create for the big two, it's owned by them, not owned by you. So that's why you're seeing the whole migration into doing creator-owned. As much as we like Hickman, he's not going to be creating his best stuff for Marvel. When he can create something for himself and see a in perpetuity, I always love that term, it means until death. Never sign something that says in perpetuity because it's probably not beneficial for you.
Right.
He's doing it for himself, and he's going to see that money. His children are going to see that money. Bill Mantlo, William Messner Loeb, he's homeless now. These people, they created stuff that we have loved for decades, and the company craps all over them, and they're left to rot. So it's just an ever-changing field that if you don't stay abreast, not keep up with, it'll peter out like anything and everything.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And honestly, with the success that we've enjoyed in the last 20 years, I can't go back. I can't go back to the days when comics were in the background and they weren't at the forefront. They weren't in pop culture. I love where we are right now. We are in literally the second golden age of comics. And way too often do we have factions of fans fighting each other because this comic is too political. I don't like its message. They made Girl Thor, and it's all, listen, first of all, and I can't believe I haven't said this already, but let me just say this. If you're a fan of anything, any character at all, any storyline, any side quest, any sidekick, and you don't like what just happened to him, just wait a little bit. Comic books are the status quo. Who is Batman today? The same guy who was Batman when he first appeared. Same guy as Superman. Same woman's Wonder Woman. Yeah, things change for a little time. Barry was the Flash for how long? Then it was Wally for how long? Who's the Flash today? It's Barry. Dead for 20 years and he came back. There's no such thing as permanence in comics if it's permanence that has a negative effect. Everybody comes back to life. Superman, Batman, well, he didn't come back to life, but he went from a snapped spine to being Batman again.
He went from being shot by an Omega beam to traveling around the galaxy and the universe and back again.
Right. Listen, superheroes might die, but they can always come back because they're superheroes. And they might change. You might get Girl Thor for like a year. And I remember so many people getting mad about Girl Thor. And it was ridiculous because everybody I know who's been reading comics for an extended period of time went, how long do you think that's going to last?
Well, and if anybody read it, they knew that it was a storyline that was not going to last because she had fucking cancer.
Right.
It was not written to be permanent.
Right.
But whatever.
And people get so fired up about it, and I get it. I understand. Listen, when it comes to the passion, I have seen some of the most passionate people in comics on all walks of life, whether I agreed with them or whether I definitely disagreed with them, like some of the folks we're talking about. They're some of the most passionate people in comics I've ever seen. And I love seeing the passion. But I think what we all need to realize is that passion can turn into toxicity when you love something so much that you can't see a change or you hate the change. It can turn toxic, and that love it's bad for everybody then.
Yeah, it's how you choose to direct that energy, that passion. Mm-hmm. You can use it positively or negatively.
It's like my dad always said, you can't choose what happens to you, but you sure as shit can choose how you feel about it.
Right. That's exactly it. And we're getting into the toxicity. You had asked me, like an hour ago, you had asked me, what toxic, what did I see? What are the negative things that I've seen? Everything from veiled death threats to rape threats to doxing to swattings. There's factions of people that are in this internet freaking stupid Twitter war about comics and picking sides with creators and stuff. There's that toxicity that's there. And listen, I'm going to say right now, no matter what, if you're on whatever side of the divide you're on that argument, there are third-party unaffiliated people that just like to stir the pot, just there for the lulz, and they want to make this side mad at that side and watch them fight and see who's going to say their mailbox got knocked over this week. It's
it turns into mob mentality.
Absolutely.
It's tribalism. Absolutely. I need to feel like I'm a part of something. I need to feel like I'm validated. So as long as I'm the loudest voice in the room, even if I'm not correct or even coherent or any of that, then as long as I can be an edgelord and be extreme in my views, other people will go, yeah, you know what? I kind of feel that way too. I don't know if I feel that way, but he's loud and he's confident. I'm going to agree with that person.
Right.
Hey, I agree with you too. Really? Okay. So how about we get together and go screw that person's page up on Twitter, on Instagram.
Yeah, that'll show them or that'll change the situation. Like, it's like, what do you think you're doing? Do you really want to make a change? Because if you want to, there are a lot more effective ways to go about it. It's just
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're right, because I see these same individuals attacking people. I don't like what you're doing with this character. Attack. You're stupid. Your comic sucks. Everything you've ever done. I'm going to go to your Instagram and hate all your posts. I'm going to go downvote all your YouTube videos.
Who has that energy?
I don't. But you see that and you're like, what are you doing? Just don't look at it.
What's
Walk
wrong with
away.
you, Blake? Did you have a shitty day?
Yeah.
It's like maybe now the internet can be used to unload the stresses of everyday life, but it's exhausting seeing how much anger can be put into some of this behavior.
Right. And the number one way that you don't affect change is by alienating yourself from, first of all, in comics, you don't affect change by alienating yourself from the creators. If you don't like something a creator is doing on a book, do you think they're going to be more or less likely to listen to you if you don't say they're SJW trash? Or they're writing woke garbage, or this whatever ridiculous, stupid, childish, easy to remember
Zinger, 144 character Zinger,
right? That they can put together. Do you think you're gonna get anywhere by saying that to that person? What happens when somebody walks up to you and starts off with, "I think you're an idiot. Here's what I'd like you to do different." You don't get very far with that.
and I think they should know that. People should know that. People that really want to make a change or are really invested in the direction comics are going in should know that that's not the way one makes a change.
Right.
This is just drum beating, but with very dire consequences sometimes. I mean,
exactly. And some of this, it gets ridiculous. Some of these people, and here's the thing. I'm sorry, let me back myself up. For all those people who have these complaints, I think there's a forced X, Y, and Z. I think, I don't think they should have done this. I think they did it just to appeal, and that's pandering. You know what? I hear some of those complaints. I don't even necessarily disagree with them every single time they make them. But the problem is, it becomes an all-encompassing swath. It turns from somebody saying, I think, here's a good one, because, oh boy, did I hear this a lot. I think making Iceman gay was them pandering. Okay? Well, I understand why some people might say that. But the reality is, it's a pandering that happened. It's not really pandering that happened. It was a business decision, because they have been trying to make Iceman an A-list character since, 1982, 83? When that first mini come out. Sometime in the early 80s. They did all those, they did an Iceman mini, they did a gargoyle.
Yeah, it was like in 82, 83, I think.
There you go. So they have been trying to make him an A-list character since then.
Forever.
It never works. Never works. He's not an A-list character.
He's an ice cube, dude.
Right. So what did they do? They said, we do not have a lot of gay representation, or LGBTQ in general representation in our comics. Iceman's never been a very well-loved character. We've tried to make him A-list multiple times. And what if we made him a gay character? Because number one, it's a character that's been around for a long time. Number two, that'll make it more approachable for people who may be somewhat uncomfortable with a gay character. I'm not saying every editorial decision's right, but I'm just saying. And that's why they may have attempted to do it. Now, I'm not saying I have any insider knowledge and that's the way it was or whatever. I don't know that whole story. But when these things happen, a lot of times that's literally all it is. They're trying to give a segue, an opportunity for somebody who may not be comfortable with a change and give them a comforting element, which is either a familiar character, a familiar costume, or familiar power set. And, I heard that one so very often. And again, I get what people are saying. I understand that there's a desire not to see these things that they view as pandering. But not everybody views it as pandering. And I think that's the part that they lose. Maybe you do.
Well,
Maybe you thought that was, but not maybe a young person who identifies with that character didn't see it that way.
yeah. Well, and it's the thing is like, just because you don't like something, it doesn't mean you have to create a campaign against it. You could just not buy it. You
Ding.
can just not buy it.
Now, I'm going to chime in here. I don't know if you've read the issue where Bobby Drake, the older version, comes out. It did happen in a Brian Michael Bendis comic. And I remember the issue very clearly because I thought it was a very well-written issue. In this, you had young Bobby Drake take young Jean Grey to kind of facilitate things, to go, hey, I have some questions. So have you always been gay? Did you know? And you have older Bobby look on over at Jean's like, this is why everyone hates you. It felt very organic where he just sheepishly goes, man, kid, how is it that at such a young age you have your stuff together so much better than I do now? And he broke down, and it was just a great scene. It was organic. It was done properly. It wasn't just, hey, you know what? I'm Bobby Drake. I know I've had some flings here and there with some other members of the X-Men, but I'm gay. It wasn't like that. It was very natural. It was naturally done to help usher it in, because you do need representation. If you have different types of people all around the country, try and get them into reading these books. X-Men is a very large team. Do I really think any one of you people that have any trouble with Iceman really have a trouble with Iceman, or is it really a trouble within? And that's what my guess is. Because if you're having a problem with Iceman, no one gives a crap about Iceman. I'm going to say that right out.
What is the impetus for the behavior? Why are they lashing out at that? It's something with them. It's not anything with the book, like something triggers, some sort of trigger. And it's like, and if it's shitty writing, it won't sell.
Right.
It will work itself out. Capitalism is kind of what that is. But yeah.
And I hear actually with Iceman in particular, I've heard a narrative that was pushed that, Iceman doesn't sell, and they push out more copies to retailers, and those retailers, okay, they don't pay for the books, but they get stuck with that shipping. No, they don't. Literally, if Marvel sends you extra books,
you can send them right back.
You can send them back, but number one, they don't charge you for the books.
Like Invisible Woman that came out just about a month or two ago, whatever was ordered from the dealers, they got like 10 times as much as they wanted. Right. That's where you want to wipe your ass with an Invisible Woman.
You can
say this. You can.
Right.
You can go to your comic shop. Hey, do you have any why do I keep saying Wonder Woman? Do you have any Invisible Woman #1s? They'll go, here's a stack.
Yeah.
Right.
Unruly Simeon says that same thing with Ethan. Don't agree with his politics or most of what he believes, but I bought Cyberfrog. Why did you buy Cyberfrog? Because he's a good fucking artist. And that's why the dude's in the game. He's not in the game because he says the bullshit he says. He actually alienates some of the people that are in this community. But why wouldn't you buy Cyberfrog? It's great art. So
here's some Ethan Van. I just had this randomly out. No particular. I didn't even pull this for the episode. It was in a box. So I'm just gonna.
We lost Rob.
I know. What did he do? I think maybe he tried to make himself big and he X'd himself out.
Looks like it. Hopefully he realizes.
I just jumped out of the chat room. Yeah, I realized quickly. See, I had this just lying about, and this is great art. I'm just going to blow up real quick.
Give me a minute. You make yourself.
All right. So I'm going to do this. Put this underneath the microscope, if you will. Now, this is New X-Men issue 128. And I believe it was this issue, I could be wrong, that in this one, Ethan Van Sciver in every page found an area to put in the word sex. And in doing so, that's why I initially picked up the books of New X-Men with Grant Morrison writing. He just finished doing what was it? JLA. So it's like Sex in the Book, and Wizard is telling me, hey, you should probably check this out. Well, if the #1 comic book magazine that exists today, well, that was a long time ago, if they say go ahead and buy this because it has sex in it, I'm going to go and buy it. And I love Ethan Van Sciver's art. I still like his art. His writing leaves a lot to be desired, but that's fine. You can get a writer. It's not difficult. But his art is pretty damn amazing. I can separate the artist from the personality. He might be a nice person in real life. He might be a dick. I do not know this. I have never met the man, so I cannot critique him as a human being, only from what I have heard from other people. So from that, I will never try and judge someone I have never met, never interacted with, only just from observations. That's all I got.
Yeah, I believe, I don't know if it was you or a lady who said he actually alienates some of that community. I didn't pull any of his books. I have Cyber Frog there, which I was going to talk about a little bit, but I was that fan. Ethan's name was at the top of my pull list. If a book came out and his name was on that book, I don't care if it was an alternate cover or if he was series artist. If his name was on the book, it went into my pull list. It went into my bin. And that stayed almost all the way up until DC cut him a couple of months before that. And this is really kind of where I got involved in this little whatever it is. The pushback against this group was because I went on there and I kind of ignored it at first. I tried to just navigate and not really pay attention. But the Ethan was on there yelling about the SJWs and SJWs came and they smashed the window of this place down the street, smashed the window of this shop I was in because I was signing books there. Well, I mean, that's awfully specific. Did you get threats? Well, yeah. So some people said they didn't want me there. Okay, well,
what did you do?
What did you do? Why would somebody just not want you to be there? And then I started to look into him and his social media presence, the one that he was putting out into the world. And if you could look at that as an impartial observer, and I'm going to tell you right now, I buy plenty of books from people I don't agree with. I bought his. I knew he was right wing. I didn't know he was extreme. And I didn't know that he was at the beginning stages of building a cult of personality around himself.
Oh, he's Mormon too.
I know, and that's the.
Yeah,
but I had 115 books in my. Right now have 115 books, not counting this one because I'm selling it. In my collection, with that gentleman's name on them. And I was a fan. I like I said, top of my pull list. There's his name for years. And I saw that the who he was, the person that he wanted people to see him as. Now, I've heard people say maybe he's playing a character. That's all well and good. If he's playing a character, he's been playing it a long time. And that's a character I really don't like because he's just really a toxic human being with his social media. I don't know him in real life. Maybe even meet him in real life, and he is just the snuggliest, loveliest little teddy bear of a human being. And he plays this character on the internet and does it because he knows it's, I've already screwed up my chances at the big two. I'm not getting back into either one of them anymore. So I gotta play this up and build this cult and get people to pay me directly so I can buy new houses and have lobster dinners and, go to art galleries and make fun of the art when I should be drawing my comic, we've seen since then, I saw that toxic behavior, but I love the art and I wanted to still keep buying his books. So I'm ashamed to admit, at first, when I first saw that story that he posted, I tried to kind of walk away from it. But he kept at it. And I kept seeing things pop up about it. And it just kept getting worse and more ridiculous. And I finally said directly, I'm never buying a book with your name on it again, man. This is ridiculous. You've crossed the Rubicon. It's no longer I disagree with your beliefs. I now have to say you are so toxic and you act so outrageous that I don't even think, you might be, internet drunk and not realize just how bad you are. But this is too far. And I can't anymore. I can't support you. I can't support your books because you're just taking it too far.
Yeah.
I'm just noticing here we're closing in on an hour and 55 minutes here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed.
I'm just gonna leave this on this. How do you handle people online now? And then after this, I'll just ask you to promote your social media and we'll sign off. So how do you handle people online? Let's start off with Lady Fantastic.
Honestly, I've tried it. I've reacted to it, and I've not. And I find not reacting to it is the way to go. So how do I handle it? I completely disengage.
Just walk away.
Just done.
There is that block option.
Yeah, it's just not worth the emotional investment. It's a complete stranger. What the fuck do they know?
Yeah, because if you follow somebody online that other people's don't, they could have a blockchain on it, and you wind up looking at Twitter, whatever it might be, and it goes not applicable, or you can't see this post. And that's why, because you follow somebody that you might not have known that all these years is one of those types of people. And that's up to their experience, and their experience dictates why you can't see what they have posted, because they might have interacted with somebody from that community. You just decide to go, hey, this person followed me, I'm going to follow them back. You have no idea. You didn't research to go, oh, okay, on their main page it looks completely fine. Let's see replies. Oh my God. I have to wind up doing that now to anybody. I go, oh, let me follow them back. Wait, hold up. Let me recheck their social media. Can't look at the main page. I have to look at replies and go, oh, okay, they're a normal human being. Instead of, oh my God, this person hates all women. Anybody that's not white, yeah, I have got to not look at this person. Oh, but I don't want to lose a follower. Sometimes it's okay to lose that follower. As Kevin Smith put in Clerks, sometimes you just have to let that hard-to-reach chip go.
And it doesn't really hurt my feelings anymore either, because it's like I know who I am, and I know that there's people that are going to like me, and I know that there's people that won't. And I have enough support and sense of self to not be harmed, like personally, by what some random person says on the fucking Google.
They're just a person on the internet. We're all people on the internet.
We're just
no one's better than another.
We're an N of one. Like, so
where this broadcast ends, the person watching this at home will go like the end of the movie Truman Show. What else is on?
Right.
Because there's always going to be the next person out there. How do you want to be remembered? As somebody that has decided, because everything in life is a decision, to decide to be kind or be the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to leave you off with this last thought, and I'll let y'all promote your social media. I remember years ago when I was a teenager and I wanted to break into the comic book scene, because don't all of us. And Todd McFarlane told me this. You need three things really to be in any field. Doesn't matter what it is. One, you can be a superstar, that's almost not happening to almost anybody. Not everyone can be a superstar. Okay, so what are the other two? The other two is, two, get along with people, and three, be timely. Be punctual, get your work in on time. If you can do those last two, you'll be in the field forever.
Yep.
All I have to do is get along with people. It's not that hard.
Right.
We have more in common than we don't.
Exactly. So we should embrace that instead of pushing others away, because in the end, no one cares. It's going to be us. It's up to us. It's all our decisions.
And we all need each other in different ways that we might not even be aware.
Very much so. So I thank Lady Fantastic. I thank Miracleman for being on here. So at the very end of the show here, we are approaching the 2-hour mark now. So promote your social media. Let's start with Mr. Miracle. Where can we find you?
You know what? I don't do a whole lot. I'm on Twitter at Komodo1977. Stop on by. I typically post my comic buys. And I am a cheap comic buyer. I know I put some older vintage books up here. Just so you know, I am not a guy who spends a lot of money on comics. Well, I mean, I do. But I don't buy ones if I think they're expensive. So I'm definitely a bargain shopper. But even bargain shoppers, as you can see, can get some pretty sweet stuff.
Like this woman down here.
So yeah, stop by and see me. Occasionally, I get a little political. I'm sure you know which way I lean at this point. If you are a CG member, you know, and you want to stop by and have a friendly debate, listen, I'll always have a friendly debate with somebody who loves comics. But friendly would be the key word.
Hear, hear. Lady Fantastic, do you have anything coming up?
I don't know. I just live life from day to day. No, I've just been really busy at the work, so no, I don't have anything planned. I have such things are so regimented in terms of like keeping notes and shit that I try not to have many plans in my other life. I'm sorry, I'm loosey goosey.
It's okay. It's 12:36 in the morning as this broadcast is about to finish. So I would like to thank everybody that has been here tonight. We will be back again next week at 10 p.m. I am live every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on YouTube on my channel, Rob Worst. I might jump into other people's chat rooms here and there. In your live broadcast, I want to thank not Mr. Miracle, Miracleman. I would like to thank Lady Fantastic, the both of you, for joining me tonight. If you ever need anything in the future for your pages, just let me know. Hopefully we can join again next week. And otherwise, you people at home, thank you for joining in the live chat. People that have been here this 2 hours and 2 minutes, thank you. This is the longest broadcast I have done. We're going to try and keep next week's a little shorter. So, thank you for joining me tonight. Good night. Enjoy those new comics. Enjoy those old comics. Just enjoy comics. My name's Rob Worst, live from Miami. Good night.